all right, this to me is also the reason why they need more hands in the military. Okay. Yes, because
particularly in the rivers and
so to an extent, logically, maybe that's why they need them to fill up the quota.
We want to send our youth to go and pay the supreme price.
Supreme price. So, but coming back to the issue of vandalism, the issue of security, the issue of also the period, the Yuletide season, and also politics, in governance per se, the military actually stands out or seems to stand out in the form of the kind of an operation they carry out. So with respect to this, are we going to have a very commendable operation this period? What are we actually looking at?
I'm looking at consequences. Because first of all, this is happening along the elections are very close. And I'm not very comfortable with the timing. Yes, I'm not very comfortable with the timing. The problem of pipeline vandalization in Bayelsa State along the south region has always been there. And the governor is coming up with this very ludicrous idea at this time when, the politics will be heated. I would have believed that, first and foremost, the military would have actually come in specifically to provide additional security within the elections. It would have been a more straightforward approach. However, the question now is that as laudable as the idea is, what are the consequences of this idea? If military has to say they want to curb crime as the reason behind this, then they cannot do it alone. They need to bring the police into it. They need to bring the civil defense into it. They need to bring the other institutions, prosecuting powers. They also need to bring the EFCC into it. Because it's not enough you arrest these people. What next after that? You scatter and you vandalize their vandalizations. And then so what next after that? So the police needs to come in so that those who are caught for certain crimes can be immediately prosecuted. Where there is no justice in a society, no matter how much you catch the criminals, it is not going to serve any purpose. Secondly, you're going for those who are within the illegal refining issue. I have always said that this administration has a way of putting the cart before the horse. And it's a bad thing in our contemplation. I'll give an instance. This is just one single sector of crime. Now, if you stop this criminality, it is going to give birth to other forms of criminality because these boys will go out into some forms of other crimes. We have seen that over the months as the government successfully succeeds in taking away illegal refining sites and all that. We've also noticed that kidnapping is increasing by the day. We've also noticed that street assault is beginning to increase. I mean, River State, we're in the judicial system, so we see a lot of these cases in the increase. Why? Because the moment you try to stop one crime, those people will have to jump into another form of crime. So we're looking at situations where the government will come up with a more standard solution. If these people's problem is that they are refining fuel illegally, come up with policies to incorporate them into the industry properly. Let them pay the actual taxes, provide them additional funding if possible, and let them do this thing legally. Going to set the military up against them, I am telling you the truth, it will only increase crime in that environment. Because once there is no oil to steal and there is no refinery to refine their illegal products, the next thing is that they will jump into other forms of domestic crimes. And then before you know who is going to suffer it, you will have the military have a record. Oh, there's no longer illegal refinery site. We've maybe brought it to ground zero, or maybe we've achieved 90%. The 90% of those things you achieved, 90% of the people who were into it were not arrested, 90% were not prosecuted, 90% are not facing any form of justice system. So what happens to those 90% that you've cleared out of the creeks and out of those refining sites? They come back into the society and look for another form of crime, and then the case even becomes worse. Now, what will happen is that the police will now have more issues to handle that are within their jurisdiction, but outside the jurisdiction of the army. So therefore creating another form of problem. I think that we should be more strategic with things like this. If you're going for operations like this, it should be a joint tax operation. The military should be there to provide the tactical support in forms of arms and engagement, combat engagement. The police should be there to be able to grab these people, get the evidence, do the investigation report, and move them. Then the police also should be able to bring in the EFCC to find out, because some of them, they will have sponsors who would have been engaged in all form of laundering and financial crimes and all that. The FCC also picks it up. So all the evidence gathered together will be split into all these institutions. They will know what and how to, prosecute these persons, and the people become more scared. But at the end of the day, you're saying pay the supreme price. Some of these boys are militants. You think they don't want to also pay the supreme price? So we are missing the whole point when it comes to handling these forms of security. The major cause of insecurity in Nigeria still goes back to the issue of unemployment. Why are they vandalizing? Why are they stealing oil? Because they want to make profit. They want to have their ends, want to have ends meet.